when you're living in fear, it zooms all the way in on the problem, making it feel huge and urgent. When you're practicing the zooming out, when you're looking at the bigger picture, you can see that most fears are smaller and more manageable than they really seem. Hey, friend, welcome to the Art of Managing Your Brain podcast. I'm Dr. Charlie Hornes, and today we're tackling fear. That's right. One of your favorite topics, I'm sure, as it is mine. And we're not just talking about the life-saving kind that protects you from actual danger, but the kind that holds you hostage, whether it's fear of failure, rejection, or even the dreaded email ping from your boss. I always hated those. Fear is part of our survival system, but in modern life, it often misfires. Instead of keeping us safe, it traps us in overthinking, avoidance, and your favorite and mine, procrastination. So in this episode, you're going to learn the 4 parts of the fear square. This is a framework to identify how fear shows up in your life. We're also going to look at the neuroscience behind why fear paralyzes you or makes you reactive. And we're going to look at tools to reframe and respond to fear, turning it into an ally instead of an obstacle. By the end of this episode, you'll be equipped to name your fears, understand them, and choose how to respond intentionally. So if you are ready to tackle the topic of fear, then let's go.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornes, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
Okay, friends. So what are the 4 parts of the fear square? We can also call them the fear quadrant because you're going to have the top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right of the fear square. What this is a framework to help you identify how fear's operating in your life, why it feels different depending on each situation, and most importantly, how you can regain control rather than fear controlling you. So fear is not inherently bad. It's a survival tool like so many of these things that are so annoying in our own lives. It keeps us safe. Fear helps us not to make mistakes or fall down the cliff or, run into the cougar that's, up on the side of the hill that we shouldn't be climbing on. Yeah, sometimes fear is good. But in our modern life, our brains often misinterpret situations, triggering fear in contexts where it does not belong. So each part of this square is determined by 2 factors. How real is the fear? Is it real, or are we projecting or potentially imagining it? Are we thinking of worst case scenarios? And second, is it happening right now? Or is this something that may or may not be happening in the future? So here's how it's going to break down. The first corner of our fear square, we're going to call quadrant 1. This is real and it's immediate, as in it's happening now and you have agency to do something about it. So for example, a speeding car is heading right towards you. The response would be your brain initiates the fight or flight response, releasing adrenaline and cortisol to prepare your body to act fast, as in get out of the way of this speeding car heading right at you. That is corner 1 or quadrant 1. Now, why does this matter? This is fear at its very best. Your body is mobilizing resources to protect you. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. And we talked about this last week. This is what sends the signal to your hypothalamus triggering your automatic nervous system to prepare you for immediate action. The second quadrant, or our top right corner of the fear square, is a real fear, but it's future oriented. It's not now, but you still have agency, or there's still things you can control or do about it. So, for example, you're preparing a high stakes presentation or a meeting at a critical deadline. So this is where healthy stress, also known as eustress, comes in. It motivates you to prepare, to practice, to focus. This is how we get better at things. This is how we reach for more success. This is how we learn and we grow, we stretch, we get uncomfortable, and we learn brand new things. All right, our third corner, that bottom left quadrant, is fear that is imagined but immediate. So this means that it's happening now, but you have no agency. There's nothing you can do about it. For example, sitting in a meeting and you're assuming everyone is silently judging you. How many of us have done that before? For whatever reason, you're reading the room and you have decided that everyone is judging you silently. We have all been there. So what's happening here? Your brain misinterprets a social scenario as a threat, triggering the fight or flight response, even though there is no physical danger. So why does this matter? This is where fear starts to work against you. This is draining your energy and it's clouding your judgment. That is your brain interpreting a neutral circumstance and put meaning on it. So your brain is evolved to prioritize social belonging because being excluded from the group used to be a huge risk to your and your family's survival. You never wanted to be excluded. You always wanted to remain in the tribe. So today, it's overreacting. That's what's happening. The fear feels real, but it's based on perception. It's not based in fact. Now, let me clarify. You are not overreacting. That is not what this is about. This is about your brain interpreting something that used to keep you safe, but now is not at all helpful because you are not at risk of not surviving. This is not one of those don't be dead scenarios, but your brain often thinks it is. So in order for you to stay a part of the group, your brain might ramp this up. If you're feeling like you're not quite receiving the approval or the positivity that you would like to receive, you may just be receiving neutral expressions, neutral responses, and someone may be thinking about potatoes that day. I mean, you have no idea. But because you're not getting immediate and clear positive clues or tells, your brain often, when the survival mechanism can take over, interprets neutrality as negativity. But that's not what's happening in this situation. So this is another opportunity where thought work becomes your superpower. Your thought might be, they think I'm not good enough, or they hated my project, or whatever. But that's just that story that your brain is offering you. Your brain is offering you words that are made up in the moment. What if the thought instead was, I don't actually know what they're thinking. I don't know. And that's okay. And maybe they aren't thinking about potatoes, and that's okay. You don't have to be the recipient of everybody's negativity, especially when you have no evidence. Try on new thoughts in that moment and see how it shifts the way you feel. True and believable thoughts that are incrementally kinder to you or that are neutral and not unkind. I've got a place now where I can put everybody's resources in one storefront. What's really cool is when you use the what we call affiliate links, and I'm now becoming an affiliate for a whole bunch of different things. It's all on my website at charliehornesscoaching.com, and it's on the bonus resources page. What happens is when you purchase something off of that, a portion of it goes back to the show. And so what you're doing basically when you buy from there is you're supporting the show at no additional cost to you, which is kind of like the coolest thing ever. It's going to help us continue to create content for you and bring on incredible guests that are, they blow my mind. So I'm hoping they will blow your mind too, whether it's metaphysics and psychology and theology or high fantasy romance. You're going to find your next favorite read right there. Let's go. All right. And the last corner of the fear square, or the fourth quadrant, which would be the lower right side, is the imagined and future-oriented corner. That is the not now, and you have no agency, as in you have zero control over whatever the not now situation is. So an example of that would be thinking, what if I fail this project and ruin my career? These are the what ifs. These are chronic rumination, chronic paralysis, and chronic avoidance, which could lead to chronic procrastination. Not helpful. So why does this corner matter? This corner traps you in imagined worst case scenarios. This leaves you feeling entirely powerless. This is where predictive coding takes over. So what is predictive coding? So predictive, we're predicting something, right? Your brain wired to anticipate danger at all times. Remember, your survival mechanism is always on high alert, ready to take over at any moment in case there's any kind of threat. So your survival mechanism wired to anticipate danger fills in the gaps of uncertainty with worst case scenarios. Always. Always. It's always leaning on the side of worst case scenarios because your brain can be wrong 99.99% of the time, but it has to be right that tiny little percentage when it saves your life. When you jump out of the way of the oncoming bus and you don't even know you did it until you're calm on the side of the road. But every other time, your brain is wrong. You're not in life-threatening situations. You're not about to get eaten. You're not in danger. But your brain assumes and fills in the gaps, and it's attempting to prepare you for any potential threat. But in doing so, in our day and age, when we're mostly safe almost all the time, it creates unnecessary stress. This is like your brain trying to protect you with a faulty and cracked and broken and totally muddy crystal ball. This is showing you disaster after disaster, what if scenarios. But these scenarios, they're just guesses. They're gaps filled in with the worst possible situation so that you don't go down that path. These are guesses and made up stories, not facts. And this corner of the fear square, the bottom right fear quadrant, number 4, Fear is driven by thoughts in this space, like, I won't be able to handle this. See, the key is reminding yourself that you've handled hard things before. You have already begun to stuff that evidence folder full of evidence that proves to you that you've handled hard things before. So you have to shift to a thought like, I don't have to figure out everything right now. I just need to take the next step. What is the next right thing? Your brain is like the camera with the zoom lens. And when you're living in fear, it zooms all the way in on the problem, making it feel huge and urgent. When the truth is, you're just 10xing and you can 1x, right? Bring it back a notch or 12 here. When you're practicing the zooming out, when you're looking at the bigger picture, you can see that most fears are smaller and more manageable than they really seem. It's that bite-sized thing, right? You can handle all kinds of things when you break it up into the littler pieces. Your brain evolved to protect you, and it's like an overzealous bodyguard. It reacts first, punches first, and asks questions later. And sometimes it tackles the wrong threat. Often it does. But with the right tools, you can rewire your brain to pause, to assess, and to respond much more effectively rather than living constantly in reactivity. Rather than giving the sensations and vibrations of fear all of the control, because they are immediate and automatic. And once you get a handle on them, yeah, they feel gross, but they're supposed to. Fear is what keeps you alive, and it's also what keeps you growing, and it keeps you from falling in potholes. This is automatic. And it's supposed to feel the way it feels. It doesn't mean it's real. And it doesn't mean you cannot disrupt it and interrupt it at any moment. Get your thinking brain back online and consider whether or not you truly are in a life-threatening situation and whether or not you want to keep feeling that, or if you want to work on changing your thoughts incrementally so that you can feel differently once you think a new thought. And now I want to talk about some just quick actionable tools for quadrants 1 through 3. And I'm only going to really address 1 through 3 because next week, I really would like to do an entire episode on quadrant 4 or corner 4 of our fear square about catastrophic thinking, because that's a really big deal. And I want to spend a little bit of time diving a little deeper into what catastrophic thinking is and actionable steps to address it. So here's a quick summary for quadrants 1 through 3. Fear can be managed with correct tools. Quadrant 1, we're focusing on recovery after that immediate danger. Quadrant 2 or corner 2, we shift into preparation with micro goals, mental rehearsal, and preventative planning. And quadrant 3, challenge your thoughts, push back on those thoughts. Ask yourself, is this a real thought or is this just a story that my brain is telling me? Challenge your thoughts with cognitive diffusion. Diffuse cognitively the thoughts. Catch them, label them, and let them go. And then redirect your focus to self-compassion and change or reframe the narrative you're telling yourself. Because if they're just words, then you can change words. And if words cause your feelings, you can change your feelings. You can do this at any time. Try it. See how you feel differently. Because fear shows up differently depending on what quadrant we're living in, what corner of that fear square. but it doesn't have to derail your life. You don't have to live there. You don't. It's not real. And by using tools tailored to each type of the fears that we've identified, you can move out of survival mode and into intentional action. All right, and we're going to wrap up quickly by diving into the fourth corner of the fear square, that bottom right. We're going to talk about this in much more detail next week, but this is the imagine and future-oriented fear. This is the stuff that really gets in your way. And so we'll explore some thought work tools to break free from that rumination and to reclaim that control that you have when you feel like you have no agency in this situation. If you found value in today's episode, here are 3 ways you can keep this momentum going. You can share this episode with someone who could use these tools, because the more we understand fear, the less it controls all of us. Also, you can take my Thought Saboteur quiz at charliehornetscoaching.com/quiz. And this is an awesome and fast way to uncover what is the thought pattern that is keeping you stuck and learn how to get out of it. And finally, if you haven't already, leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps me create episodes that serve you better, but also helps others discover these life-changing tools. So friend, remember, fear does not control you. By understanding the 4 corners of this fear square, you're already starting to rewrite your relationship with fear. You have the power to change how you respond. One thought, one action, one vibration, one moment at a time. And I'll see you next week, where we'll dive even deeper into quadrant 4 and tackle that catastrophic thinking head on. You don't want to miss this. Have a great week.